This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Oh, isn't that hair fabulous? Broadcasting live from the new hotspot on Fort Myers Beach. Wahoo! Willie's! It's time for another exciting, award-winning episode of Beach Talk Radio. Here are your humble hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And a good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wahoo Willie's. Can we have a big hand for everybody here at Wahoo Willie's? Thank you so much for joining the show this morning and for watching wherever you are across the country. And for all of our sponsors, we want to thank before we start the show and introduce our guests for the morning. Nervous Nelly's, La Ola Restaurant, State Insurance USA, The Whale, Jorge Barrera, Michael's Homes, Dorston Claims, Allen Development Group, ATM Mortgage, Liberty Roofing, Mike Bannock, MB Enterprises, Alex King, Laura Sanchez, Affinity Building Systems, A1 Florida Home Inspections, and Wahoo Willie's, of course, right here on Old San Carlos on Fort Myers Beach. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for tuning in to our video this morning. What are you doing? I don't know if I do or not. Maybe over here somewhere. We this morning, if you didn't catch it, we did a walk-around video, too. The first one was at the Best Western. We got an update from Tim and Sharon Faircloth about their business and when they're going to open the Best Western and what's going on down there. So if you have a chance to go look at that video. And we also took another tour of Lynn Hall Park, which is a dump right now with all the garbage and the sand and the potholes. And it seems like Lee County's completely forgotten about Fort Myers Beach, but that's just my opinion, and what do I know? I'm just a dinky podcaster. It would be nice if they cleaned up Lynn Hall Park so we had about 100 parking spots for the people that are coming down to Fort Myers Beach. But that's for another day, Dave. Another day. And, Dear, are you going to join the show today? Dear, my wife is out here kibitzing with the folks and selling merchandise. That's why I gave my sister $50 to be here to help with the merchandise. But my sister, she's a little slow mover. She's not as active and as aggressive as Marie is. And so Kim's feels like she has to step in and help with the sales of the merchandise. We have plenty of hoodies and yellow shirts and white shirts. And we thank you all for buying all of our merchandise. We're going to move right to our first and only guest today because, you know, Jim Atterholt, the vice mayor of Fort Myers Beach, deserves a full hour. He's one of those guests where 1 hour isn't enough. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for the vice mayor of Fort Myers Beach, Jim Atterholt. Look at you shaking hands. And
you want Kim here?
Yeah, so you're going to sit there. She might or might not join us today. So how are you doing, Jim?
I'm doing fine,
maybe back up just a little bit. That's going to be the camera there, so I don't want this. I'm going to get rid of the logo. It's going to be right on your face. Are you sunburned? Did you get some sunburn?
Went for a run this morning.
Nice. Do you want to tell that story?
I probably should tell the story in full confession. Ed and Kim it was just Ed this morning. Ed was having this really somber and powerful conversation with Sharon and Tim this morning at the Best Western, and I couldn't hear obviously what was going on. I'm running on the beach this morning. I'm running by the Best Western. I see the colors. I knew it was them. So I'm hollering, hey, happy Beach Talk Radio. And then they're having this really emotional, somber conversation. So I was the idiot that was yelling. Fortunately, Ed didn't recognize me at the time.
I didn't know who it was, it was nice to see somebody who recognized that we were out there.
My timing could have been better. Yeah.
You know, I was talking about running on the beach last weekend when we were doing the show, and there's nothing nicer or more pleasant than getting out on Fort Myers Beach and when the sun's coming up and you're able to run, you know, and see how beautiful it is and how far along it's come. the sand wise, and the beach just looks great.
And the beach does look great. And when you're running south in the morning when the sun's coming up, you can actually, it's a great time to come up and try to look for glass because you can see it reflect off the beach. And it's so much better than it was even a month ago. And most of the reflections now, they look like glass, but they're actually seashells. But you still occasionally see that little shard of glass. And I'm so excited whenever I run on the beach, I see a lot of people walking and they've got their Publix, plastic Publix bag, and they're picking up the little pieces of glass. And it's such a big help because it's just, like you said, it comes in with the tide. We're always battling it, but it gets better and better every day. And boy, I tell you, the beach looks spectacular.
One of the things that people email me the most about is, when are you doing the beach cleanup? Is anybody doing a beach cleanup? Like they just so want to volunteer and help and get out there and do something. And it's just so cool to hear that all the time.
Well, you guys have been part of a number of them. Keep Lee County Beautiful has been part of them. Good morning, Kim.
I think there's one tomorrow. The Community Foundation's doing
Community
one tomorrow.
Foundation.
No need to get up, gentlemen. No need to get up.
There's actually a crew of volunteers just about a block away cleaning up the sidewalks and picking up debris. And I think that's a group that's been helping over the last few months. And so I tell you, I was going to save this for the end, Ed, but I want to challenge you.
Oh, boy.
It's just the distraction level.
I want to make sure it's okay. Okay, go ahead. I love a challenge.
So
the challenge is for you to pay attention.
I'm
I'm
hoping my content will be so riveting that I'll keep.
Usually you have a monologue.
I'm ready. I haven't started that one yet. But I was thinking about it, and we had a guest on this key question. So Larry Peterson, who was with the state, and I've heard other people suggest it. I've heard people on your Facebook page suggest it. What about if we, and when I say we, I would yield to you guys because you guys have the Army. If we organized a sidewalk sweep for Estero Boulevard, in other words, use the Amazon account that you guys have, and you seek help from very gracious and generous people in your audience, and have them donate brooms and shovels and we have a day where or a morning where we all along Estero Boulevard, people take brooms and maybe some shovels, and we clean up all the sand and the debris on the sidewalks on both sides of Estero Boulevard.
Where would you put it? Because that's usable sand.
Well, I think you'd have to put it in piles and then see if the town would come by and pick up those piles in conjunction with the state.
Do you know anybody at the town that could help us out with that?
I know a couple people. Yeah, I think they would be interested in that because a lot of that sand can get recycled.
I love
some of the lighter sand could be swept into the. You don't want to sweep it into the street. But I just think, that's the.
We would definitely need rules that people would need to know, like not rules, but. Okay,
guidance,
what do we do with it? What do we do with it?
Because some guidance. But imagine, Estero is our premier.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love it.
And if that looks great, it lifts morale. It boosts people's spirits. And I just think people have been trying to walk on that sidewalk. They're trying to ride their bike on that sidewalk, and it's a challenge. And so any efforts on the sidewalk front, and a lot of people who live on the particular street near their sidewalk, they could just come out and join.
Right.
And you could all along Estero, people could come out in the condos. They could come out and help. And there's just areas that really need some help. And we've asked the county for some help on that. But I think having that volunteer spirit, there's so much people could do.
And faster.
A clean sweep.
Clean sweep. However you want to market it.
A
like a
sweeping event.
I love the idea. And the last few council meetings, people have come to the council and say, there's so much sand on the sidewalks. What do we do about it? That sounds like a great idea and something that we could organized. So thank you for that.
That would be wonderful. And another thank you for both of you. You have been very gracious to show this key questions for key staffers show before both of your Friday and Saturday show. And with all due respect to the town's social media platform, we get a lot more views when you guys show it, and it's awesome. And again, for those people who have been watching, we're trying to get out as much information as we can. If you like C-SPAN, you'll love key questions. It's really dry.
Wait, is C-SPAN still a thing?
But C-SPAN is still a thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Brian Lamb of Fort Myers Beach.
But I must
Jim
tell you,
Atterholt.
but we get out such great information, and the views we get, particularly from the Beach Talk crowd, because people are still hungering and thirsting for information.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get it, and we're trying to be as transparent as we can. We got things we got to work on as a town. There's no question. We're not going to try to paper over that stuff. And so we try to get the key people on. We really dig deep. We do a deep dive. We try to answer the most frequently asked questions. We also try to get the subject matters out there. So thanks for those who've been watching, but a big thanks to you all, because it's been a huge help to get exposure for some of the challenges. Just today, And you guys started it by playing it yesterday afternoon. Our town manager, Keith Wilkins, was on, and we went through all the key openings that are currently available in the town of Fort Myers Beach. You know, and your audience is all over the country, so people may know of a utilities director and who's sick of the winter time, and they maybe want to relocate down here, and
or a finance director.
But if we can get the word out and people can just apply through the website if they meet those qualifications, I mean, it's a great partnership between the town and Beach Talk Radio. I just want to thank you for that.
And I will say that I've been on the town's websites a few more than a few times, and there is a lot of good information. There's a lot of information, and there's a lot of good information. And I think that's the challenge. Is we've talked about that before, is getting it in a way that's accessible to people, because it is so much, but it is there, and maybe taking piece by piece some of that information, and then you can do a show about that.
And some people learn visually, and they like to. And with your show, maybe they're painting their
auditory.
walls, or they're ironing their clothes.
Mhm.
They've got your show on in the background. They can actually accomplish a lot while they're listening and learning.
Yep.
And hopefully they can do that with this Key Questions show. And I just wanted to thank you guys again for
Well,
helping us get the word out.
While we're thanking each other, and this is a kumbaya,
wow.
big hug kind of moment, the access that we've had to the staff and the government has been incredible, and we thank you, and we thank Dan, and you know, we had Chad on last night, and we've had Jenny on.
We had a good
and
time.
It's almost like the town staff has been unleashed to do their jobs. And you see Jenny doing videos on her own, like a PIO should be. If you trust somebody, you let them do their job. And the relationship, just to get the information out to the people, because that's really all they ever wanted from the beginning was the information. It's been great, and
it's in the public interest. I mean,
That's
yeah. And this is what's best for the town. I mean,
Right.
to get all this information out, whether it's good or bad, people need to know what's going on,
Right,
and we
right.
need to have that transparency.
Now let's talk about some of the bad, just to get it out of the way early
I was just
on.
going to also thank him for his efforts, in addition to you guys collaborating on the post office.
Oh, that
too.
was a tag team kind of effort. That was awesome.
I know that a lot of your council persons also, you know, they knew that you were really behind the scenes and did a lot of whatever you want to call it, negotiating, diplomacy. That is you. That is your wheelhouse.
But it was a partnership, because you know I
yeah,
played
but
it.
he's the heavy hit.
No, but I need that though. but it actually plays off each other,
Yeah.
because let me give you a couple examples. So I pushed really hard to try to get the right people say, why Senator Scott's office? Well, Senator Scott is on the Homeland Security Committee, and that has oversight over the post office. And the post office is its own unique entity. It's pretty separate from the rest of the federal government. It's hard to penetrate it. So I reached out to Senator Scott's office, numerous calls, and finally got a contact in there from our town manager at their district office, Erin, who was awesome. She got me in touch with their DC staff. We went through this back and forth. And finally they said, well, maybe the senator could write a letter to the Postmaster General. And I said, well, you know, a letter's nice, but you know, I'd worked on Capitol Hill I worked for a member of Congress for 16 years. So I just know the drill. And I said, could he find just a couple minutes just to call the Postmaster General himself? Because obviously that has a lot more impact. Plus it gets to the Postmaster General. So the senator's office says, well, okay. And I'm in the island. I didn't have internet access. He's like, can you send us a little briefing paper? So I sent Ed's article about the post office, where he blasted pretty good, and quite frankly, at the time, deservedly so. And it was pretty hard hitting, much harder hitting than I probably would have gone. But I sent that to the senator's office, and he used that as his talking points as he's talking to the Postmaster General, and it was great. And then I would send that Ed's articles to once the senator got involved. I started to have some contact with high level employees at the post office who were really in a position to do something about it. And then I would send them Ed's letters, and I said, listen, we're getting so much heat. First of all, our population is suffering, but also the media is all over this. They're really, this thing is a huge issue. You got to get engaged. And I keep sending your articles. And then I send your articles so that when things slow down for a while, I'd send your articles to the senator's staff. They're like, oh my gosh, we got to get so the senator ends up making 2 more phone calls to the Postmaster General, which I must tell you is pretty unusual. So kudos to the senator's office. But again, it was that combination, good cop, bad cop, pushing hard, because it does, you know, this vice mayor title. I don't even know what the heck that even means, but neither does anybody else. So when I'm calling senators or I'm calling, the post office, or I'm calling CVS saying I'm the vice mayor, I don't do it for ego purpose. I just do it to get stuff done.
Right.
And people are like, oh, the vice mayor's on the phone. I don't know what that means, but it must be something. So it actually is very helpful to get things done.
Now the thing, you done?
Yeah.
What I wanted to bring up was I feel like Lee County has really dropped the ball on Fort Myers Beach. Lynn Hall Park is
Not Bayside Park. It's
we'll
Lynn Hall
get to
Park.
Bayside Park.
Yay.
And I know Jim's not as much involved as that as maybe Dan is or Kevin Guthrie is, but Lynn Hall Park it's Ray Sandelli's wheelhouse. It's if they cleaned the parking lot up so that you guys could charge for parking. People are coming to Fort Myers Beach. You put a fence up at Lynn Hall Park, they're going to park somewhere else. They're going to park on a sidewalk. They're going to park in private property. Somebody on Estero established their own parking lot out of nowhere. There's a parking lot out of nowhere charging $10 a day, which is, I guess is fine. People are coming to Fort Myers Beach. They want to come to Fort Myers Beach. What the hell is the problem with Lee County? Why won't they at least clean part of Lynn Hall Park up so that we can have 100 spots?
Let me first of all say, fair question. I have talked to Commissioner Sandelli, and the challenge, as I understand it, and I don't know all the nuances, but the way it was explained to me is that they've got a situation similar to what we experienced with our town hall, with they're trying to get reimbursement from FEMA and from their private insurance carrier, and there's certain dynamics that they have to keep that untouched so until it gets fully evaluated. I think there's some complications that don't make sense from a practical standpoint, but as you're trying to get things fixed and repaired and getting the appropriate insurance.
Okay, Jim, it's been 120 days.
I know, but that's not.
But these insurance
untouched,
companies have
120
not been
days.
terribly responsive.
There's
Right.
wires
How would you
dangling
be-
from town hall 120
You can't be
days.
surprised by the fact that it's
Dear,
taking folks
We're on the
longer.
same team. You're
No,
supposed
you
to be
and I are not
on the same team.
No. I have to provide.
No, but let me say this though, in
rationale.
fairness to our friends at Lee County, they that Lynn Hall Park, they put a ton of money into those bathrooms.
Oh, I know.
They've done
I
a lot
loved them.
to the decks that go over. I mean, they've done a lot of work to keep Lynn Hall Park beautiful. So I mean, it's not like they're not committed. We've seen their commitment. So I think they're facing some internal challenges with their insurance and with getting reimbursed, because obviously we're going to need those bathrooms replaced. We're going to need a lot of work done, and they're going to have to get the funds to do it. There's a lot of challenges that they're facing. They've been extremely helpful on so many fronts. But I mean, it's a fair question. I think you ought to have the commissioner on and have him walk through the answer.
Thank
there
you.
we go.
Thank you. Are you applauding for me or for Jim? Wait a second. Oh, for Jim. All right. So the other thing is Bayside Park. Now, come on. It's a city park. Let the volunteers do it. If Kevin Guthrie can't come up with a time frame to do it, yeah, those people at the state talk a lot of shit sometimes, like they're getting so much done. That is a gem right there, and it looks like if you figured out how to clean the park and fix the park, so much excitement. You are about the excitement on Fort Myers Beach, Jim. You
The
want this to be done in a
Renaissance.
year, and yet we have to look at that with fencing around it.
Yeah.
It's not right.
I'll say this: the shorter term issue that you're raising, there's a list of priorities that need to happen, and that needs to continue to move forward. But here's where I would just say this, and I think you'll agree with me. When that does get done, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later, there's a philosophy now on the council with the town managers that the whole use of Bayside, the whole paradigm will shift. I can see us blocking off the street, having vendors, having bands, partnering with the Snug Harbor, Nervous Nellies, Wahoo Willies,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
having
of course.
and having these giant
All right,
events.
you jumped ahead of the part where it's still
But listen,
broken.
though, as I talked to the folks at the Nervous Nellies, before the hurricane, to try to have any kind of an event at the end of the street at Bayside, the hurdles were just insurmountable. Those aren't going to happen anymore. I think there's a kinder and gentler
Okay,
approach.
Jim, you're that's 16 years on Capitol Hill right there.
No, I'm very serious.
But
though.
let's get it fixed then.
Well, we should get it fixed.
Well,
but
how
I
do
mean,
we get it fixed?
I don't. But we've asked the state for a lot. And the state,
somehow that's a $500,000 fix. It looks to me like I could go out there with a rake.
I know we're currently before we're currently before the legislature right now with significant asks.
Right. So why can't we say
Well, what
to
about,
Kevin?
can you just get it cleaned off? Not, I
Well,
mean, can it be half done and then open?
Well, when Ed says, gosh, let the volunteers come, that's a logical, common sense thing. But don't forget this is a very litigious state. There may be restrictions about letting people come on there. I don't know.
What he doesn't
the
get.
lawyers
That's
have a
what
tendency to kind of disrupt
the kibosh
common
on
sense
it.
at times.
Yeah, okay, we're
And
going to
you
talk
know
about that.
that.
People are climbing over debris in Times Square just to be on your beach. I mean, so
It's a challenge. These are challenging times, and it is a priority, Ed. But I just think there's a list of priorities, and everybody's working on it. But I don't know
Can
the
we get it
answers.
halfway done? Can we just get it cleaned, but not all
here,
the
stop
sails
harping on
back
Bayside
up
Park.
Yeah.
Let it go.
I do think, though,
least-
once it does get done, you're going to see a whole paradigm
this
shift.
road is going
on
to be
how
fabulous.
It's going to be fabulous.
But does it have to be completely done to be open?
I don't know what you mean by open. I mean, to have bands
Well,
and to have street fairs,
well,
you probably
no,
have to
people
get
that-
it done
And
right.
by the way, where's the plaque? I want to know where the plaque is.
I don't know where the plaque
Somebody
is.
stole that plaque.
I don't know where the
I
plaque
think I
is.
know where the plaque is. It's somewhere in Belize
I
or
have no
something.
idea. No idea where the plaque is.
Because the day after the storm, the plaque was there and then it was gone. But so are you happy with the number of bathrooms in Times Square?
Oh, I should have been prepared for this one.
I mean, yeah, it's like a broken record.
I want to tell
with
you,
him.
when I went into that Porta-John this morning, I was the first one in the Porta-John. You could smell the freshness. It was totally clean. There
Okay,
was no
people are
duty
eating.
anywhere around.
People are
And those are sweet when they're clean. So are you happy with the number of Porta-Johns?
I think it relates to some extent to your comment about Lynn Hall Park. I'm hoping if we can get that process expedited, that the county's been nice to put a couple Porta-Johns there. But the Porta-Johns at Lynn Hall Park before the hurricane, they were spectacular. I'm not the Porta-Johns, the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
system.
They just redid
They
them.
just redid it. It was spectacular. So to say Lee County's not committed, I don't think it's really fair.
I didn't say they weren't committed. I said they're slow.
Well, they may be slow for reasons that they're beyond our pay grade, but in the sense that they may be wrestling with insurance, they may be wrestling with FEMA and reimbursement. They may put up hurdles for them to do what they need to do to what to us seem like common sense solutions. I would yield to the commissioner on that.
Jim.
What?
What
They
about
rebuilt the Sanibel Bridge in 3 days.
I know.
It's been 120
I don't
days.
know why they're not, but
Lynn Hall, okay.
I'm not going to pound it. Lee
No.
County has been so awesome to us.
I love
Yeah.
I love
I know
those
you
5
do,
guys. I love, but enough
for
is
you
enough
to
already.
put a little pressure on. That's the First Amendment, and God bless you. I mean,
Yeah. And they'll never talk to me again, but that's fine.
Oh,
but it's,
yes,
it's,
they will. They can.
they're
handle
just
not
think-
that thin-skinned.
no.
What about putting porta potties down here?
It's an interesting concept. The one thing I did see as you've stimulated this porta potty conversation,
Be careful.
I'm going to be known for porta potties.
The-
There's a
the-
T-shirt coming out with porta potties on
The
it.
cost of these porta potties is really
is a lot.
shocking.
It is.
It
It's
is.
crazy.
It is
shocking.
shocking.
So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Can you put a cost on a clean John, though?
Clean
I wasn't
bathrooms
sure
are the
where
best.
you were going with that,
I,
Kim. Yes.
I pulled it in because
Jim,
we're in a
yes.
restaurant. Yeah.
Now that we got past all that,
Yes.
how are you
The
feeling?
duty
How are you
conversation is
feeling
done.
about
Let
the
me-
rebuild? Okay, go ahead.
I'm glad you did that because I want to go on a little bit of a filibuster here because at the last town meeting we had 3 vendors come before
You notice
us.
we all put our mics down when you start because we know.
I love when he does
but
this
I
stuff.
think it's important because you guys have asked this question. A lot of people ask this question, and I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding. So that we have these professional disaster mitigation firms. They come and present, and in their presentation, they're talking about 7 years, 5 years, 10 years to rebuild Fort Myers Beach. And I get so frustrated when I hear that. And I'm not some sort of phony, giving false expectations. But that's an absurd number when you look about the practical concept of rebuilding Fort Myers Beach. What they're talking about primarily is getting the full reimbursement from FEMA. We have to put a lot of money up front. We've got to justify those costs, and that's what these firms do to help us. And then there's a long period of evaluation, and then FEMA's got another long period where they could come back and take a look to see if we did what we said we are going to do, and then because they could potentially claw back those funds. That takes years. That doesn't have anything to do with the rebuild of Fort Myers Beach. So when I keep talking about it, and let me just explain why I talk about it. I'm not just some shill for the tourism industry. We've got people in their 60s and 70s on this island, and they hear this and in their 80s, and they're hearing this number 5, 7, 10 years. They don't have 5 or 7. They don't want to take 7 years to think about when things are going to get back to functioning here on Fort Myers Beach. And we're losing some. These are some of our best citizens, and they're very discouraged. And so when I went on my rant about a month and a half ago, it was primarily because these people were giving them a kind of a false perspective. I think, and this is what I see when I talk about rebuild, I'm talking about a functional paradise. And I think we could have our hotels open. We could have our condos open. We could have many of the vacation rentals open. Some of the homes are going to be open. The homes are a little bit longer struggle, depending on everybody's individual situation. But I'm telling you what, we're going to have look at the restaurants and the food trucks and the activity. I mean, we're a little over 3 months here. We will be a functional paradise. We will have a functional season next season. And again, when we run around with this 5-7 year thing, we're discouraging all the people who vacation here. When are they going to go to Sarasota, and then they're going to have an experience there? They're going to start having memories there. We're going to lose these people.
But Jim, explain specifically what you mean by functional. Like, because there's always going to be, like, you can drive down some roads on Fort Myers Beach now, and the houses haven't been touched. So some people might think when you say 1 year, like everything's going to be fine in a year. So what do you mean specifically?
That's why I'm going through the list here, because the Publix will be open. God willing, the CVS will be back open. Well, hopefully our gas stations will be back open within a year. Margaritaville will be open in less than a year. They're going to have 4 new restaurants, and they're going to have activity. So a lot of people, they're fearful that, gosh, they come down here, there's nothing going on, there's nothing to do. They can't get basic necessities. They can't have a good experience. Well, they will have one within a year. Will everyone's homes be built? No. I mean, let me use my street, for example. It's not my street. I'm temporarily renting a place at the end of Mango Street. Our condo won't be ready for at least 6 months. So we're renting a place at a condo at the end of Mango Street, Sea Great Bay Condos. These people, by the way, probably the first condo to open on Fort Myers Beach. Between the condo board and all the volunteers who live there, amazing. The place is immaculate. They've got the place completely rebuilt. They're waiting on one additional permit for their garage doors. I'm awed by the sense of volunteerism, the team spirit. By the way, condo board members are not paid. Thankless job. There's a lot of people on this island right now really spending almost full time trying to rebuild and help their condos get back to shape. So then you walk down Mango Street. I see 2 or 3 homes that have senior citizens that are there. They've moved back in. Their places are immaculate. You know how these folks are, they're so particular about their yards. And then I go a little further, and then I see this giant debris pile that somebody's dumped on both sides of the street. You can barely get your car down the middle. It's been rained on. It stinks. And you got this, there's critters running around. I mean, it's nasty. And then you go a little further, and then you see the Mango Street Inn, which was this beautiful boutique inn, kind of bed and breakfast there. Hasn't been touched. Then you go to the Heavenly Biscuit next to it, which is now a lot. It's just a vacant lot. I saw it for sale. I think it was for $2 million for this just vacant piece of land. Then on the other side of the street, by the way, there's some short-term rentals that are open. They're immaculate. And then there's also 2 or 3 homes that are literally knocked off their foundation. So, I mean, the variety of progress is all over the place. And I see it. I walk by it every day because I walk everywhere. On the other side, by the way, I see the folks at Tuckaway Bagel. And I see that they're trying to do a food truck. They're trying to Heidi and his Bruiser's out there. He's assembling a vegetable cart, and he's going to sell fresh vegetables. I mean, it's really a cool idea. There's no grocery on this island. It's a great idea, and they're talking about having they're talking about brewing some craft beer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And these people, and they're living in these campers behind the building.
What you're saying is it's going to be a mix.
It's
going
mix.
to continue to be a mix
But
of build and not currently.
And the bigger projects like Red Coconut and maybe the Wyndham.
What do you hear about Red Coconut?
I haven't heard anything. I think everybody's kind of taken a pause on that out of respect for the passing of Mr. Meyer. So I think everybody just needs to hold on the Red Coconut, let them mourn, let them respect that process, but that'll work itself out. But my point is, those projects are going to be 2, 3, 4 years, but that's going to happen anyways. We always have projects long term that are ongoing. So I mean, when I see functional, there'll be things will be happening here within a year.
There'll be events. People want to get out and have a good time. And I think the difference is it's the rebuild versus the finance part of it, that the financial part of it's going to take the 10 years to recoup the finance part.
Recoup from FEMA. There's a lot of private capital pouring into the island. Yeah. And it's amazing. And most of it's from Southwest Florida. We're going to get into this other piece about some of the exciting things that I'm hearing on the island. You're going to have our friends from Moss Marine on here. What they have planned, and I don't want to steal their thunder, is just, I mean, enough to blow you away. Because they lost 4 of their 6 warehouses for their boats. And they have probably one of the most beautiful pieces of property. You were just walking by it the other day on your show, your morning show. That's what they have planned. And I don't want to step on their messaging, but it's spectacular. But one of the things, because it's going to create some additional density. So when I'm talking to these folks, and by the way, you got grandfather, father, son, all involved in this business, family business, have tremendous history in Fort Myers, really skilled developers. So I said, all this additional density is going to come. I said, what about the traffic? What about some of the issues that are going to caused by that density? And I said, would you guys be willing to consider, you're a marina, would you be willing to consider not a water taxi, but a ferry that can hold a lot of people and start them up there at Fishtail Marina, pick people up. Now think about Fishtail Marina. Think about all the people that could walk to Fishtail Marina on the south end, all those condos, all those homes up there. They could walk to Fishtail Marina, hop on a boat, watch the sunset, have a beverage, be dropped off. Either you stop at the marina behind Publix. A lot of people can walk to that marina or take their bike to that marina. And then all of a sudden you go down to Moss Marine. Maybe you head over to San Carlos Island, drop some people off for dinner over there, and you run this shuttle. Because a lot of these people on the south end, they won't even go to the north end because of the traffic.
Yeah.
And
wow,
how beautiful would that be to take a boat? But I mean, people are tired of this traffic. And so anything we do density wise has to be offset by some kind of traffic mitigation. But a water ferry, not only is it a cool experience, let's say you stop at a restaurant on the north end, maybe they give you a voucher that helps offset the cost of the water ferry.
Right.
So, I mean, they were completely receptive to it. And having the private sector run the water ferry versus the government, it could be spectacular.
The private sector should take over the government because things clearly get done quicker.
There's opportunities for that to happen. Yeah.
So along those lines, Times Square really needs to be more, in my opinion, needs to be more of a priority. It doesn't look like there's any planning being done for the main area when you come over that bridge. It just seems like there's giant piles of concrete in Times Square.
I feel like you have your priorities. Everything is a priority. Like get it all done and get it all done right now. Bayside, this one.
We're talking about the most, to me.
Okay, well then go with that one.
Other than people's houses,
just
which are
about
obviously
one
important.
Thing, and then we'll move on.
I'm done complaining about the Porta Johns, but what I'm saying is it doesn't look like there's a planning committee ready for Times Square.
And there's not. And it's a little bit awkward because you have a litany of different owners who own property there. And I've met with them and trying to get them all on the same page. And then you've got obviously the various zoning issues that they're going to all have to wrestle with. And you've got the county and you've got the town. We want to partner with them. We want to, but everybody has a different vision, particularly amongst those owners right now, of where they want to go. Do they want to hang on? Do they want to sell? Do they want to be part of this broader new vision? And that's a little bit of a challenge. It'd be different if we just had one owner and if there was some consolidation, that would certainly help. But certainly until they and the owners are meeting and they're talking, if they could come together with at least a broad vision, then
but my question is, where's the leadership on the Times Square thing? Who's the person that's saying, okay, we're all going to get together? Right. It almost seems like it's Bill Veach. He constantly brings it up at the town council meetings.
Well, but it's the question is, what is that vision? Is it the town imposing its vision on these private?
But you got to start with something, right?
Well, I think it's got to be a collaborative dynamic. I think you've got to have the private property owners need to come up with a vision, and then they work with the town, work with the county to make that vision possible. One of the things I've asked the owners of Times Square as they look at for a need, they have to raise up to some extent. They need additional density. I want to see a traffic issue for them. I would love to see a pedestrian walkover between Times Square and Margaritaville to the new tier at the Margaritaville and the plaza there. But that's a big piece of this, because if we don't fix our traffic mess,
for sure,
we've got to get people going.
Go back to the way it was. You were a big advocate of the walkovers back before the storm.
Well, you have too been. You've talked about that.
Like Las Vegas. I always bring up Las Vegas.
Very similar. Yeah. Minneapolis is another great example. Indianapolis has some things like that. But if we get it, and I just talked to Tom Torgerson the other day, he's more than happy to accommodate that walkover, the second walkover to Times Square. Mm-hmm. And the Times Square folks seem interested.
Because it is going to have to go up.
it is going to have to go up. But again, getting people to walk over that and keeping that traffic moving.
But the only way to do it is to block it off. The only way to do it to prevent people from crossing the street is to block it off.
Once you build the pedestrian walkover,
They will go. Once you build it, they will use it.
No, they won't. I think you
won't.
need to have guardrails up. And you're always going to have some knucklehead that'll hop over the guardrail, but 90% of the people are going to abide by the guardrails.
You don't see people running across Las Vegas' strip there. I mean, they're walking.
but-
There's so many of them,
The
though.
pedestrian overpass, not only for Times Square, but if Lonnie Kai wants to do some Norm's parking, it would be great to have a pedestrian walk over there. The Red Coconut, another pedestrian walk over there. The more we can just keep traffic flowing. The quality of life on this island is adversely impacted by this traffic. I know we're always going to have traffic, but it's the congestion. It's coming to a complete stop. If people are going to 5 miles an hour, they're okay. There's lots to look at. It's fun. It's pleasant.
Right.
But if you're stopped for an hour, it disrupts your quality of life on this island. So everything we do has to be about.
Do you think that because there are so many, driveways and places to turn in, there's an option to block off the traffic from Times Square to, I don't know, Seagrape?
Well, the state has its own new plan at the foot of the bridge, which I was a little disappointed they didn't really address the traffic issue from a pedestrian standpoint. I mean, we've got a body of land that will kind of try to get people to walk in the crosswalks, but the crosswalks still delay traffic. They stop traffic.
Yes.
There was a lot of crosswalks.
There was a lot of crosswalks, and if we could get them to go over, then we don't have to deal with that issue of the crosswalk.
Right.
Now, you're always going to need a crosswalk here and there, but I just think that's a big piece of the puzzle.
You know what? I see people just walking on the sidewalk with the yellow shirts on. It's amazing.
It's exciting. Yeah.
So can I ask?
And I appreciate you wearing the yellow shirt. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Part of the Army.
As
You asked a question.
Okay, I'll ask a question. So as the rebuild goes on, we get a lot of questions, and it comes up frequently and often is, people get worried about big buildings going up and the size of buildings and retaining that charm and cottage feel that used to be here. As you look forward, as the town plans forward for all this rebuild, is there going to be an opportunity for a committee from the town, of people who live here to kind of participate in that planning and in that vision as these not developers, but as the town utilizes a company to kind of oversee that plan?
I wish I could say good question, because then we could embarrass Ed, but it is a good question, but it's also a multifaceted question.
So I should put my microphone down and let you go?
No, but it is a complicated question, because right now we're currently revising our comprehensive plan, which is kind of the vision. Every town, every municipality is required to have a comp plan. They're required to update them. We just happen to be updating it anyways. It's a very opportune time. And that really is the master plan for the vision of the town, what you want to encourage, what you want to discourage. And the LPA is currently examining that plan. Obviously, there's a public process. We welcome the public's input in that process. But when you use the word plan, it's a little challenging, because everybody tells me too, they love Fort Myers Beach because it's very eclectic.
Yep.
In other words, you don't want to set some sort of architectural standards that have it all look generic or cookie cutter. And I know that's not what you mean, but I'm just saying when you talk about plan, some of it's going to be, in order to maintain that eclectic nature, it's going to be a case-by-case situation where somebody will come with a vision, a developer will come with a vision, and then it'll get shaped. Now, hopefully it won't be the nightmare that poor Margaritaville had to go through and take X number of years. And again, I think we've learned a lot from that process, because we have to be faster. We've got to be quicker. We've got to be more responsive. I'll give you an example, and I've got to be careful because it's still very much in its infancy. I met with the family that owns the Wyndham, which has the pinchers behind it, or had the pinchers behind it, heavily damaged. It's going to need to be rebuilt. I've also met with the people that own the Neptune, which is just a little further south or north of the Wyndham. And so, but one of the challenges for these mid-sized hotels is they need, in order to make the economic model work, they've got to have additional density. They need more rooms. And everybody's worried. I'm worried about density. Everybody's worried about it because we've got traffic issues, got other issues. But we're going to have to be thoughtful in terms, if we want redevelopment, we're going to have to be thoughtful on allowing some additional density in return for certain public benefits.
Mm-hmm.
That's where this traffic mitigation piece comes in. Maybe it's a workforce housing piece. When I say workforce housing, the folks at the Wyndham, they had a really interesting proposal, and they may need a little additional height, but they want to do it in a way that respects all their neighbors so it doesn't block their views. They want to make sure that they preserve that restaurant behind it because the people on the south end, they don't have many opportunities to eat and be on the beach. And so they want to, so that's a very important piece of property for the south end. So if you could have, one of the things they've talked about doing is having enough workforce housing for their own workforce, which helps on traffic. So those people aren't coming back and forth.
Right.
Plus it also allows their workers to get to work. You talk to large employers here, you ask about workforce housing. The first thing they'll say is, well, workforce housing, that's a nice idea, but we want to be able to get our workers to be able to get to work and they're stuck in traffic. So that's also an incentive for them to build their own workforce housing for their own workforse. Instead of having the town have this sort of generic workforce housing, let's get the employers to be incented to have their own workforce housing to house the workforce that's currently employed at that location. So your question is a good one, but it's a complicated question. And I think it's a situation where the LPA will be involved, the town will be involved. Obviously, the public will have a lot of public input in every one of these projects that come individually. And if we want to maintain that eclectic nature, we've got to be a little careful with, now the comp plan will give you that master plan flavor that you're talking about, but it'll give enough freedom for us to have that eclectic nature where things are a little bit different as we go step by step, I think.
Well, and I think people were also worried about residential properties, how high they can go, how big they can go.
There are pretty significant restrictions on what can be done. And if they want to come in and make a change because they feel it would create a public benefit, they can file for a variance, they can file for a special exception, but they've got to make the case to not only to the public and to the council, but to their neighbors. Their neighbors have the ability to weigh in. We're very sensitive to what the neighbors would say. So if they could find an idea that seems to marriage well with the thoughts of their neighbors and makes sense, then I think we would be open to it.
Do you think the town needs a new attorney?
Well, let me just touch on that for a second. And I'm not trying to be diplomatic. I just want to give it's such a broad question, only because of what happened at the last council meeting. So let me just first say this: Karen and John are people of integrity, and so to think that there was something untoward going on to me is unfortunate.
Okay, well, we need to explain.
Yeah. You want to set it up?
Yeah. It sounded like it sounded almost like there was an accusation that John King and Karen were violating the Sunshine Law by talking to an outside attorney about being, if I'm getting it wrong, tell me. That's right. By getting an attorney, a local attorney, to come in and perhaps apply for the job, and that wasn't the case. They didn't talk to each other about it. They heard about things and they talked to the attorney separately from each other. There was no no meeting at the Whale.
They're both
to discuss it.
They're both people of integrity, and they both ran on a platform of change. So nobody should be shocked that Karen and John want to see change. And quite frankly, Dan and I were sort of in the minority on the change front for a couple of years. We tried to be respectful of the majority, but now that concept for change now has a significant, or that desire for change has a nice majority, a working majority on the council. I think the only thing that got caught up was procedurally. And how do we do this from a process standpoint? I think if anybody who watched that council meeting, this fact that it was a little bit disjointed is an indication that there was no sunshine violation. When things run really smoothly and super polished, that's an indication that there may be a sunshine violation. We can't talk to each other. We've got to govern in a way where we can only talk to each other in public. And that creates awkward situations, and it creates unfortunate sort of misconceptions.
Well, let me just chime in on that. From my perspective, it doesn't create awkward situations. It creates the situation exactly the way the public should see it. They can't talk. They have to do it in public, and they have to do it so that people can see it. Yeah, and I'm not saying you want to violate the Sunshine Law, but I think it should be awkward.
No, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be awkward. I'm just saying people sometimes look at us and they think, what are these clowns doing? What are these knuckleheads? They can't even run a railroad here. Well, we can't talk to each other until that meeting happens. And so we just had an election. There's a desire for change. There's kind of a new philosophical working majority on the council. I just wanted to make sure that process to look for, because I've always been a fan of a local attorney. Even Rick Sand was a fan of the local attorney.
That's true.
Dan's certainly been a supporter of that. So the fact that we're doing this from a process standpoint, we put on an RFP, we seek out the local council. I'd like to have the opportunity to interview these folks. I work very closely with the attorney, and I want to make sure that everybody has a comfort level with, if we can find local counsel that's competent. I'll be surprised if that doesn't happen. If we can't, but we need at least a backup plan. We can't go without counsel right now. There's so many major things happening in this town. Yeah. We can't not have counsel.
Can I just ask, what? Because this came up too. How do you define local?
Well, to me, local is somebody who's in the area. Ideally, it'd be great to have somebody on the island. We just don't have oddly enough, we don't have a lot of attorneys on the island.
I was going to say, I don't think that'll
but if
happen,
it's Fort Myers, Sanibel, Naples, that area.
The county? Oh, so you would look outside maybe?
Yeah. No, I think Lee County that would fit into my definition. Everybody's got their own definition.
Yeah.
That would be my definition of local.
And the letter of interest came from a firm in Fort Myers.
Right, who represents the town of Sanibel. So,
I see. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's one of their clients.
Oh, perfect.
And that would be logical why John and Karen would go to talk to them, because they already do Sanibel.
Right.
So if I'm going to go look for a local counsel just to do my due diligence, I would go look to something like that, which was their right to do that. So I think though, but from a process standpoint, we need to have a formal RFP so everybody can put in a bid, whether they're from Fort Myers or Lee County or wherever. But I think each of us know that what we mean by local, and we want somebody who's connected to this community, who understands what people went through for the storm, and obviously we want somebody who's a top-notch attorney as well.
I don't think it's so much a shot at John Herron, although I like to take shots at John Herron because I thought he was part of the cabal that trying to get rid of us in Times Square when we were doing the show. But that's my personal vendetta. But I don't think it's a shot at John. They just want somebody that's local. They just want somebody that's in the community. For whatever reason, they want somebody that's not part of the previous regime.
I think that's a combination of both of those things, new change, but also local. And I think that's why the search is appropriate, and hopefully it'll go smoothly. And I want the transition to be professional, because obviously we're recruiting talent from all over the place right now. We want to have a professional operation, so we want to be respectful of the process. And I think people are willing to do that. Again, whenever we saw it with the town manager, it was awkward, because nobody's colluding. There's nobody's.
It wasn't awkward. It was so enjoyable to watch.
Well,
that's your definition.
That wasn't
but
awkward.
My point is
that
it's awkward because of the sunshine law. I'm not saying the sunshine law is bad. I'm just saying it makes things awkward, and it's not always the most polished sort of exercising of government.
The town manager search, how's it going?
Well, I never know how much I should share in these things, but I'll just be honest with you. I think it's going pretty well. I met with Keith the other day, and I must tell you, and I think you share my opinion on this. Keith is a very impressive guy. So I asked him that very same question. I said, Keith, how's it going? He goes, we got it all the right locations, all the right sites have been notified, all the professional organizations. And I said, now, don't see this as political. So take the politics out of this. It's just more historical. So I said, Keith, what about the Dick Cheney model? And he looked at me like I was nuts. And I said, well, Dick Cheney was in charge of the search for a vice president for George Bush. And he did his diligent search. He had all these candidates, all this background research, and he handed all this material to President Bush, then later President Bush. And then Mr. Bush says, what about you? And so I just said, Keith, please don't rule it out. Please consider.
And his answer was?
And he said, I will consider it.
Oh, wow.
But he didn't say,
great.
I don't want to get too far ahead of it. He's not talked to his spouse. We
didn't give me a
commitment.
spouse last night. She's lovely. And I said to her, why don't you think about coming down to Fort Myers Beach for 5 years?
But I want to, in fairness to Keith, he made no commitment, but except for the fact that he would consider it. And so, but you asked me that question. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that, because I think he's got the right demeanor. He's great with people, and he's got the experience chops.
And he's doing it now.
And he understands the culture. Decipher.
And maybe he sees it. Hopefully, he sees it as a challenge that he would like to succeed at.
Again, I don't want to be premature here. Poor Keith. He's got enough on his plate. I don't want people bugging him about it. But I'm just saying, he at least didn't rule it out.
This is an opportunity for someone to come in.
That's right.
This is a huge endeavor, but done well.
A professional challenge.
This would be a big feather in somebody's cap.
Yeah, this is not for an amateur. This is a major thing right here.
And he has the seasoning, and he's got the temperament. Yeah.
So I think to take the burden off of your shoulders, perhaps we should interview the final 3 candidates on our show and let the community decide who they think would be the top.
I would hope that they would come on your show, but we're not even close to that point yet. Yeah. And in fairness to Keith, he may have family, he may have professional. I don't know what his situation. Right. I kind of blindsided him. I shouldn't even say it this morning, but I guess I say it.
I'm glad you did.
I say it just to praise him because he really has done a great job, and he's doing a great. So if he decides not to do it, God bless him. But if he is doing a great job, and he seems to be getting along with everybody, and he just seems to be handling things very, very professionally.
And he does it openly, and he does it he's out there, and he's. It's just. I don't want to keep harping on it, but it's a 180-degree difference, and the community sees it. The community sees the difference in the leadership. I think, other than the naysayers that want to hold on to the 1970s and think the 70s are coming back, they're not coming back. And he's a personable person that answers questions no matter which angle they come from, and he does it like that.
Yeah, he's impressive. There's no question about it, and I've been impressed by him.
So,
what other key positions are you guys looking for?
Well, now, if you watch the Key Questions with Key Staffers show, Kim, we go through every single position: finance director, utilities director, obviously town manager. We went through, there's some permitting, there's some enforcement openings. And on this little show, we go through all the things that we're looking for in each of those candidates, how to apply for it. And that's such a great thing about your audience. They're all over the country. And right now it's really cold up north. And people are thinking about, boy, I could move to Fort Myers Beach and do something.
See our videos with the sun shining.
Oh, it's great. It just draws these people in.
Today is a
he's
little.
got crib notes now.
I just want to make sure I don't miss
before,
No, I just want to make sure I don't miss anything because there's a couple of things I want to talk about.
Good. Now, you were mentioning something, and I wanted to insert a great idea that I had. Had brain
How
fart.
much time do we have, by the way?
There's no hard stop here. You got a date or something?
No, I don't.
6 minutes.
By the way, where's your wife?
My wife is working today.
That's
Oh.
unacceptable.
She said reserve her a small blue hoodie. And
Okay.
We don't have a small, but we ordered more small.
She was
No.
disappointed. She read that on the website.
Yeah. We have to. You never know how much to order because you think that this thing's going to die the next day, and then all of a sudden we get 5 more orders. And so go ahead, Jim.
Let me hit a couple things. The beach school. I've been appointed to a subcommittee along with some parents. The principal was at our last meeting. We just met with the senior team for the superintendent of Lee County, and all of the senior people are involved. And it's a high-level group that they're putting on this task. And I just wanted to let you guys know, it appears as if the final vote will be on February 22nd. So I would ask, as you plan your shows, maybe a week or two before the 22nd, you could have a group of the parents on, because by then we'll have a pretty good idea of what the options are going to be. And I think it's important with all of your listeners. You got so many people who live in Lee County.
Do you think the superintendent would come on?
I don't know. It's a good question, but a little premature right now, because right now we're going through a lot of negotiations. So let's give that a little bit of time. But I think the important thing is for the parents to come on probably a couple weeks before the 22nd, because I think we'll have a better idea of what the various specific proposals will be. And I'd like for them to be able to make a pitch through your show to all your listeners in Lee County, so then they can then contact their individual school board members. Because it's one thing to contact our school board member, but it's important to touch these other ones as well. Yeah. And a lot of your listeners live in these other districts. And so if we could get them to be contacted, so it's not just the parents reaching out. There's a lot of alumni of the beach school who lives in Lee County. And we just need a wide variety of people in a very positive way reaching out to the school board and let them know we need their help.
Why do you think the enrollment at the school is going to grow?
Well, it's a little bit of a longer answer, but one of our meetings next week, we're meeting with the demographer who's done all the analysis of the enrollment, again, as a professional, but not from Fort Myers Beach. And his numbers are quite discouraging to me. And I asked the superintendent, I asked his staff, could we at least have him come in, and can we meet with him and kind of tell our story? And he said, absolutely. And so we're going to meet with him next week. They projected that over 10 years from now, there'll be 37 kids at the beach school. Now, that's unacceptable. And plus, in fairness, I just think it's wrong. And so I went through this litany of things. Now, one of the things, I'm going to get in trouble again, but I've you guys were talking about Pastor Sean and the beach. I'm sorry, the Beach Baptist Church, and they have 3.5 acres there, by the way. And you remember that we did a little show there with the vice president, and we were kind of joking with him a little bit because he wouldn't ask for help. He wouldn't ask for money. And we finally said, well, why don't you make a pitch for help to rebuild the church? And he said, well, if somebody could write a check for $12 million, that'd be great. And everybody laughed and chuckled. Well, I think in fact, I was part of these discussions. They're in conversations with some very serious people who are believers who want to help that church. And part of the rebuild would include workforce housing, which is very close to the school. And this would be a significant commitment to not only the church, workforce housing, and some other visions that they have as a mission. So you're going to see that 3.5 acres, if everything goes well, transform into something magnificent. And it was, it's again, I don't want to get off of the tangent, but the power of prayer.
You got off on a tangent there.
No, but I say that because those are potentially 50 families that could be going to the beach school. we've got the Neptune's going to build workforce housing. The Wyndham is talking about workforce housing. When we had the topping off ceremony at Margaritaville, they flew in the head of their human resources division, and I pulled them aside and I started explaining the beach school is one of the top rated schools in Lee County, and you could actually, the workers could drop their kids off. They have after school program, but you know the whole drill. And his eyes, I mean, you should see the size of his eyes. He's like, that would be awesome. We could actually create schedules around the school calendar so they can actually work and drop their kids off. Because from a recruitment standpoint, it's huge. My point is that because of some of our traffic challenges, this workforce housing piece, particularly if it's done within the private sector, we're going to have a lot more beach families. And I want to bring in some of these owners, these developers, to talk to the demographer so they can see that anomaly and that the numbers are going to be much better than they think they're going to be. And plus, we've never really told the story about the beach school. So the Jackie Lisak from the Chamber is partnering with the town. We're going to get packets out to all the employees who work on the beach, all the employers, make sure that's part of the hiring process. A lot of the employers don't even know, and a lot of the employees don't even know that if you work on the island but don't live here, you can drop your kids off.
Right.
But Jim, do you feel like that the town has a solid plan to prove to the school board that they're going to be more than 37 or 50 kids?
But that's
I think
the
he does.
families. That's what we're doing.
But workforce housing is a kind of a pipe dream right now.
I disagree. I think it's almost a necessity. You talk about
It is a necessity.
No, but I talked to the developers who are thinking about rebuilding Fort Myers Beach.
You were
it's
out
always
in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's always a big piece of their puzzle. And you missed the Wyndham thing. They're a big part of their development is workforce housing for their own employees. And all these folks many of these folks will have families. These are generally younger employees, have families, and they could go to the beach school. Plus, again, we never have marketed the school like we should.
I agree with that, but we're talking about now. The school board needs to be convinced.
No, the school is.
But they need to be convinced now that you're going to.
Well, I think we can convince them now, but obviously, if this is going to happen tomorrow, even in fairness, the school district is not expecting our enrollment to quadruple within the next 6 months.
Right.
They understand it's over a period of time, but if we have a plan and a vision, specifics, I think we can convince them.
I would love to see more families on Fort Myers Beach, but it isn't trending that way.
I think it will, from a workforce standpoint, and quite honestly, these parents. I mean, you've seen some of these. These parents are amazing.
The parents on the island are a different story. They're in a group of their own.
But they're spectacular.
For sure.
I would not want to go. I would not want to go against
but
this
what
group.
I'm saying is, how do we get more of them? Where are they going to come from? Where are they going to live? What houses are they going to buy?
I think they're coming. You talk to them. They're becoming a culture for these younger families. And
you think they can come down to Fort Myers Beach and buy a house?
I do, because these are some of these are very professional couples. Both husband and spouse are professional people, and they're doing very well. And these are people that are advocating for their school in the middle of the time they're trying to rebuild their house. They're trying to get their business back together. These people are like superhuman. Plus, they're super sharp. I would love to see more families on Fort Myers Beach.
But I think you're talking about the ones that are there, and you're talking about ones to come.
More families.
I think more's going to come.
More families.
You just look at Margaritaville. You look at some of the management team at Margaritaville. They're going to have a significant hierarchy of managers.
What community can you go to and say, okay, these resorts are in this specific area, and they're so happy that there's a school close by that all their kids can go to?
Elementary school is critical because they want to be near those little kids. You don't want to put your little kid. It's one thing to put a high schooler on a bus for 45 minutes or an hour. It's another thing to put a second grader on the bus. So I think the fact that beach school is going to be critical for recruitment of young parents and quite frankly, workforce. But these professional parents, if they know their child on an island can be just a stone's throw away, many of them working from home now. That's another development that's changed post-COVID. So many people working from home. These professional folks can live in paradise and work from home.
What's the upside to somebody buying a piece of property and putting workforce housing on it when they can put a resort on it and make
but they're not
so much more money?
I think what you missed, Ed, when you stepped away was that they're not mutually exclusive. These developments need work. They can't get their workforce here because of the traffic challenges. So if they build some workforce housing as part of their complex, they have an instant workforce right on location.
It wouldn't be a separate thing.
I hear what you're saying. I don't believe it.
Yeah, they've come to me with these pitches, and they're pitching it. I mean, it's not like I'm twisting their arm.
The reason I say that is because
so negative.
No,
sometimes.
the property on Fort Myers Beach is so prime. And you can't make more property on Fort Myers Beach.
But you also cannot run a business without workers.
It worked before the storm.
But did it though?
Right.
I mean,
It worked well enough for the people that
these
owned the
employers
businesses.
they were struggling
For
to
sure.
find help,
And I
struggling to
remember
find and
talking.
retain help.
But the
Yes.
businesses were making money hand over fist.
I don't disagree, and God bless them. I just
All
think
right.
it still was a challenge. You
And-
talk
and-
to any of them; they were having a hard time finding quality and retaining quality employees.
But that's
Well,
not
yeah,
a
they
Fort
used
Myers
to have
Beach
to come
problem.
over the bridge and have to. They're starting
know
their
what?
day
That's a-
Wait a minute. They're starting their day $10 in the hole because they have to park.
not to mention the time in a car.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. So a lot of the workers that I talked to were, not any here, but before, were looking for other options because it's inaccessible for them to come here, and
it's a big deal.
it's a big
Yeah.
deal.
Only thing I wanted to add, just
Wow. Thank you for
I-
2 minutes. My mom sent a message. She said, I can't take him today. He's too much. I'm signing off.
Those are fair questions. But let me ask this, and on a real positive note, I was just
Oh,
met
we're
with-
ending. You got somewhere to go?
No, I
I see.
keep thinking
Yeah.
we're over. Aren't we over? I'm looking at
This
your
is a
watch.
podcast. We
Okay,
don't have
well,
to. There's
I'll
no
stay
hard
as long as
ending.
I'll stay as long as you want me to. People
When
are
Dave
like, moving
Nussbaum
on.
leaves, then we know the show's
we're
over.
losing them. Can I have just a sip of your water? Or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
this
yeah,
is?
yeah,
You want a beer or something?
yeah.
Not right now. I just maybe
But
Don't
thank-
use a
it's-
straw,
It's
Can we get a
club
water
soda.
for the vice
Sorry.
mayor? The vice mayor's here. Can we get some water
All
for
right,
him for
all
crying
right,
out
all
loud?
right. So I did a little just to give you a sense of where things are headed on Fort Myers Beach. So it's so encouraging. So I got a call from this guy who he bought the Wells Fargo Bank there at Seagrape Plaza. You remember that bank
Yeah.
with the
Mhm.
drive-through and all that?
They were going to do a furniture place.
They were going to do a patio place and
Yeah.
patio furniture, and they were ready. They were a week before the storm. A week after they were ready to open the
Yeah.
business about a week before the storm hit. So the storm hits. I mean, and I toured the business afterwards. So they had a giant safe in this business inside the building, which they were going to keep for aesthetic purposes. And inside that safe, which I should say vault, all the security boxes, the safety deposit boxes
Right.
had been just tossed about like there was. And this is when the vault was closed. Imagine the force of the water going through. And they had an artificial ceiling that they were going to use because that was there before. That got washed away, but all of a
Thank
sudden they
you.
found this. Thank you very much. They have this natural ceiling that's really cool and interesting. And so they've decided they're going to change their business model a little bit. They're still going to do the patio furniture, but they're also going to do windows and doors. They've got a contract with a great vendor for windows and doors. We don't have anything like that on the island. And they're also going to do Tommy Bahama men's and women's clothing. And so because of their windows and doors piece, they're actually going to surround the whole building with glass, a kind of prototype of the type of windows and doors that they'll have. So it'll be surrounded by glass. So they have
Nice.
little waterfalls on each side, and they own all that land along Estero there in front of Seagrape Plaza. And so they were telling me, and of course, the owner of Seagrape Plaza is one of the folks he's the same guy who owns Kia Estero, which has been challenging. And so a
Keep
lot
it
of
on the inside,
just to give you a
dear.
sense of the character of these people. So there's a little restaurant called Charo Brothers, a little Mexican restaurant at Seagrape that was obviously heavily destroyed. So the family was trying to start a little food truck, and they wanted to go back and see if they could just park at that location. They were having trouble with their landlord. Imagine that. But the owners of this new
He said it, not
this
me.
new bank building. I wish I could remember the name of the store. Surf Casual something. I'm embarrassed. I can't remember it. But they were so great. They said this family was distraught. They said, you could put your food truck on our land. We have all this land in front of Estero. We're not going to charge you anything. I mean, just this kind of
Wow.
gracious.
Right.
So these are guys from Jersey, and he was there with his son, who
What
maybe
does that mean?
no. But my point is that no, they're just from out of state.
Okay.
I'm like, what's your interest in this? They're very successful people. They've got all kinds of interest in New Jersey. But I said, why Fort Myers Beach? Why do you guys care? Why are you investing your time and energy in all this? They got all these other things in New Jersey. And he stops me and he says, Jim, 30 years ago, I met my wife in front of the Wyndham Hotel. And we've been married ever since, and we love each other. Whenever on our anniversary, we go in front of the Wyndham, we have watch the sunset, have a romantic moment. And he goes, we love Fort Myers Beach. So, but these are the kind of people
Yes.
that are investing in our community.
Yeah.
And it's so encouraging. And they really want to do it right. And they want to be good corporate citizens, and they want to be part of the community. And there, you could take that example and multiply it times 100. And, I was fearful that after the storm, we'd have all this capital coming in from overseas and out of state. There's so many people from Southwest Florida. The Moss Marine people are a great example. I mean, they're local. They've got local ties. They care about and the guy who owns the Wyndham I was telling you about before,
Right.
he said, Jim, I'm not going to sell this land to the highest bidder. This is my legacy. And I just get goosebumps when I hear that. I mean,
It's the same way when somebody buys a shirt or a hoodie or a hat, and they tell the story of where they stayed, whether it was at the Best Western or the Pink Shell or the Lani Kai or wherever it was, and they have a memory of Fort Myers Beach. It's like over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden they see what happened in one day.
Well,
Right.
It's incredible.
It is
Well, I
amazing.
think this area more than I don't know. I've been on vacation. I don't have a sense of like folks that come here do. It's unique because people come here year after year after year, and it is really their second home, whether they have a second home here or not. And so their friends are here. They've met their spouse here. They
Well,
brought
how
their
we met
kids and
Gene.
their
That's how we met
grandkids.
Gene.
Right. And then his family. So I do think that is a unique attribute that this area has.
Well, and what's so unique about the investment pouring in, and just use Tom Torgerson, for example, I think but some people take for granted, we have a developer of a massive project who lives on our island.
Yeah.
Right.
He's involved. He's testifying before the school board, fighting for the beach school. We did. I think he met with the council individually. I was part of this. We met about the Silver Sands property on the other side of the Surfside, right? No, Surf
Yeah.
Shop. Yeah, Surfside. You know, the little blue building right
Yeah,
across
yeah.
from the pool. I think that's what it is. It's open like once a year.
Oh.
That's, yeah.
Who knows what it's called? But, it's
Surf
open
Club.
once a year.
Surf Club, that's it. And so the Silver Sands was a property that was completely destroyed. They're going to put about 46 rooms in there.
By the way, a great family that
Yes.
had
Great family.
people loved
And
memories at that place that
Mhm.
people would talk about over and over and
and
over
trust
again.
me when I tell you, Tom wants to, and John, his partner, want to honor that memory. They have a great relationship with these folks. But there'll be retail on the front, and they'll have the probably 46 rooms. These will be rooms with full kitchens for people that stay a little
And
longer.
what people need to realize is
gonna be beautiful.
You could have it worse if it wasn't Tom, and
Well,
if
I'm
it
just telling you
wasn't
what,
if it
these-
wasn't TPI,
these
because
are-
the guy has a house on the island. His
He's-
family lives on the
and they're
island,
involved in the
and
community
he's
as
been
well.
kicked in the crotch so many
But
times.
Mary's
Yeah.
involved raising money for the community. Their families involved. I mean, it's just you juxtapose that with a lot of developments where the folks are MIA. It's just
Right.
it's just a blessing that
Right,
we
where
have
they
that.
only care about
Yeah.
the money, and
It's-
that's not what those guys
It's
do.
very unique.
Yes.
And we ought to
Lucky.
encourage it. And that's the kind of folks that I'm seeing who want to be part of the rebuild. People like Tom who really have a vested interest in and a personal caring to do it right on Fort Myers Beach, which is very encouraging.
Let's go those first few days, Jim, after the storm on the 28th. It was crazy. It was just like we were all just trying to figure out what the hell happened. It's like, and when you look back at it now, like people come up to us and say that, thank you for all the information and blah, blah, blah. And we keep telling them to stop thanking us. I can't even remember those days. It was such a blur.
I remember
It
the
was-
first time running
I
into
saw
you, and
you.
I tell that story a lot. It was very
It was so emotional
even-
those few
yeah,
weeks.
Even talking about it now, I remember it was so shocking when we came over the bridge, and then to see you guys safe and see some other people down there was just
Kim's not only coming over the bridge, she's coming over there in the bridge in a truck with our now mayor, with a truck loaded for supplies. So Dan calls and says, Jim, can you meet me in front of Santini Plaza? I need you to run the distribution hub for Santini Plaza. So he just dumps all these supplies. We've got no signs. Nobody knows where we are, what's going. It was the day after the storm, I think.
yeah.
And of course, I called it. I think, no, that was maybe 2 days
2
after.
days after, yeah.
You called me the day after. I'm standing in Santini Plaza. I'm literally, and there is at that point, there was no relief yet. The fire department, the cops, the police department, the military, the Army Corps, nobody could get through because of the debris. And everybody on the south end was like, because you couldn't get over the South Bridge at the time. We're like, what the heck is going on? And so I'm texting everybody I know. Where do you've forgotten us? We got elderly people here. People are really. We got some really challenges over here. Are you going to come? Because we're seeing the helicopters fly over, the planes, the Coast Guard stuff, and all of a sudden, so we go out that next morning. We're standing in front of Santini Plaza. You call me. Nobody knows what's going on in the south end, so we're reporting live.
Right.
But I mean, the ability to communicate
I don't
when
even
nobody
remember
else
Yeah.
had any
we
information.
were so lucky to be out in Gateway where we had
No, but you had the ability to communicate.
connections.
Yeah,
But that's what was so frustrating for me. You guys, and then you're all of a sudden you're riding your bikes over. You got these cams on, but nobody else was getting this information, and it just saddens me that the town didn't see that and just partner with you immediately and put everything aside. And you guys were willing to put everything aside. And I'll never forget. And I don't want to end on a negative note, but one of our first town meetings, we actually allowed some of the town staff to to report. And you could just tell that the tone of the crowd started to turn because they were starting to get some information. And so after that meeting, I asked our town manager, I said, did you see what happened at that meeting? Can you at least let some of your town staff go on Beach Talk Radio? Because they've got this massive audience and people are hungering for information. And he said, well, if I do that, I'll be endorsing their political position. And I said, hold on a second. I said, I was just on live with Jake Tapper from CNN. I said, I don't agree with Jake Tapper on anything, but I went on because it was a chance to tell the story for the beach and try to get help. Yeah. I said, this isn't about politics. This is about what's best for the island. And at that moment, I just knew we had to change because that was unacceptable because it's the politics is, I understand there's politics and everything, but that's got to be put aside for what's in the best interest of Fort Myers Beach.
In an emergency.
In an emergency.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah.
There was a lot of people that I butted heads with before the storm.
Yeah.
That day after, it didn't matter.
Everything
we were talking to each other,
and now
we still talk to each other,
know some people better and be friendly,
right? And so anyway,
I'm always friendly, but
But I remember calling you on your show the day we literally had our suitcases, what was left of them, and we're in front of it was day 4 because we were on this island for the storm. And so we just couldn't flush our toilets anymore because there's no more water. We were on the 9th floor of our condo. So we walked down, we made sure the elderly folks in our building, we flagged down the fire trucks and made sure they actually went up the stairs and carried these people down. One was on 11, one was on, I think, 6th floor. And they have these gurneys, they took them all down. So once we knew they were safe, we were waiting for our ride and we're leaving our place. And we had it better than most because it was weird because can't live in our condo. So we can't, I can't go home for another 6 months. But our condo was okay. So we didn't lose our home like a lot of these people did or lose our business. So, everybody has different levels of impact and they also have different levels of how they handled it. And then everybody's different. But I remember you guys called me, right, as we were waiting. And Karen Woodson was giving people rides off the island and she was still campaigning. But she was everywhere. She's driving around, picking people up. And she was so gracious to give us a ride to my wife's aunt and uncle's house in Naples. So, but you called and I'm thinking, we have all our suitcases. My son's with us. And we're just all haggard and we're leaving our home. And it was really sad. I got kind of choked up.
Yes.
And I'm watching all these people dragging their luggage down the middle of Estero Boulevard. It was very apocalyptic and very strange. But you guys were covering it. And that was such a great way for people to get a flavor of what we were all going through. And I just think it was a very unique time. And, and I wish everyone could have rallied around the audience that you'd built up and the format that you had and the access that you had to get out information.
Now you're making people cry.
Yeah, well, it was tough. I mean, it was.
I don't have
half as bad as anybody else.
I don't want to deter it to politics, but just a real quick story. At some point, people from all across the country come in and they whether it's the state or New York City or wherever have gone through stuff like this before, are either sent or requested to come to places that have never gone through it before. And I remember there was a PIO from New York City that came in and he called me and he said, you need to have Ray Murphy and Ron Martin on the show. And I said, why? And this was right before the election. And he was trying to explain to me why. I have total access to Ron Martin. The chief was one of the best unsung heroes of that storm. And now I'm thinking in my head, you're trying to save Ray Murphy's election by telling me you're coming from New York City and trying to tell me that. You guys, I offered that to you from the beginning when this whole shit went down and you guys didn't want to communicate with the public. And now you're coming in. So what happens when a storm like this is that all these people that have gone through it before converge on a community. Now you guys are the experts. When this happened, we were talking about this last night. When this happened somewhere else that it's never happened, you and Dan and Chief Martin, they're going to send you somewhere because now you know how to help.
Right. And in fairness, it's really, that was Mayor Murphy and then now Mayor Allers, because you have to have a tip of the spear. And the sunshine laws prevent all of us to be in those meetings.
Sure.
So both Ray and Dan were the kind of the point persons for this. You're absolutely right. All these federal state entities just triage Fort Myers Beach, but you can only have one person in the room because of the sunshine laws. And so those were the mayors. So they will be the people that will be asked to go to the next storm. But all that aside, it's such and I don't want to sound schmaltzy here, but there's so many factions on the island. I mean, that's all got to melt away. We got to get together for this recovery. And I just love the tone and the culture that where we're headed. and all the bitterness and anger and factions before. I just don't have any time for it.
No.
It's just it's exhausting enough as it
It
is.
washed doesn't
away
seem
with
like
what
it's-
Ian came in,
Yes.
and
Right.
it can take it back
It should
out.
wash it all away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any last thing that you want to say to the residents and the people about the rebuild?
All I can say is now living on the island now. We got back probably a month and a half. We're going to move tomorrow again to another location.
Oh, no kidding.
Well, somebody's selling the condo we're renting now, so we want a little bit more permanency. So we found a duplex that we're going to stay in half of it. The people that own have been very kind to rent it to us, and so we're about three buildings behind town hall, so we're close to temporary town hall. So we'll have a whole nother experience on tropical shores. But as I walk up and down Mango, and I walk everywhere, and I go by all these homes, and I try to stop and talk to people. I talked to somebody from Kia Stare the other day who owns a liquor store, Nick, telling me his whole personal story and how the hardship of the financial hit and all the things that he's going through with his kids is, and just trying to put it all together. I'm awed. And I see Trey and Bruiser in their camper. These people, I mean, some people have been in these campers from the storm, from the onset of the storm. I'm awed. We use this term resiliency like it's a cliche. It's real. I mean, these people are hardcore. I'm awed by them, and they always have a smile on their face. And I know it's hard, and everybody deals with this thing differently, and everybody handles it differently. But I am awed by the people here, and I'm awed by the you see a tragedy like this, but there's so many blessings that come as a result of it. So many acts of kindness, so many acts of charity, volunteerism, and you see so much goodness that it hopefully overwhelms some of the challenge that the hurricane posed initially. So again, I am extremely encouraged about the future of Fort Myers Beach. That's not some sort of phony baloney. I've talked to the redevelopers.
It's a renaissance, a different kind of renaissance.
It's Renaissance 2.0. It's Renaissance on steroids. It really is. It's going to be spectacular. It really is.
Yeah. Super renaissance.
Jim, thank you so much for your time. We
Always
could
a
talk
pleasure.
for 3 hours. So thank you. And thank you for doing the interviews and letting us. Big hand for the vice mayor of Fort Myers
Thank you very
Beach,
much. Yep.
Jim Atterholt. Thank you so much, Jim.
Oh,
Appreciate you
thank
coming
you.
on. All right, dear. I'm going to let you mingle real quick, then come back for our final comments. But you guys know you want to stick around for our advertisers, because our advertisers are out there helping you, like Mike Bannock. If you have debris left to remove, if you need something demoed, if you feel like you've been kind of left out in left field because you got crap that needs to be taken away, you want to call Mike right away at 352-636-3719, 352-636-3719. And he's got like 1,000 reviews that every time somebody uses Mike, they call me and they email me and say what a great job he's done. So thank you so much to Mike. Call Mike if you need something. You don't want to call some jackball that's just stuck a sign in the sand and says debris removal, and you don't know who it is, because you're going to get ripped off, and they're going to break something in your house that you don't want broken. So call Mike Bannock at 352-636-3719. If you're thinking of selling your property or buying property, Jorge Barrera is in the house, and he's one of our sponsors. Big hand for Jorge Barrera right here, sitting here. You see his funny-looking face on those signs everywhere. He's a great marketer, but more importantly, he's going to take care of you when you have to sell your house or you're looking to buy a home on Fort Myers Beach. He's got a fabulous listing right now. If you go check him out on what your website, right? What's the website address? JorgeSWFLRealtor.com. It's a spectacular house, and you better come to the table with some serious Benjamins if you want this beautiful looking place overlooking the water, right? It's overlooking the Gulf. How many bedrooms? Yeah, tell people about it.
So this is actually a duplex. It is beachfront. Each side is about 3,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms plus a den, 4.5 bathrooms, elevator, 2-car garage. Each side has its own swimming pool.
Wait, each side has its own swimming pool.
And hot
So
tub.
this is a house with multiple swimming pools.
It's a duplex, yeah,
Nice,
2 homes in one.
Nice, very nice.
And it's all together is around 7,000 square feet.
Yeah,
And it's listed for just under $7 million.
that's a bargain, everybody. $7 million.
Yeah,
I mean,
6,945,000.
I see. So
But it's
you're-
a great listing. It's on the beach. It's
Yeah.
just like five houses down from John Canoes,
Right.
from the old John Canoe, and it's a great listing.
And
the living area is in great
In
shape.
addition to the fact that he's going to sell this gem, what are you going to do with some of the profits from the sale when you actually sign the deal?
As you know, we pledged 10% of all our commission sales to go back to the hurricane relief funds here in Fort Myers Beach. So I actually have 2 closings coming up in the next couple of weeks. So we got some more money to donate.
And the last sale was $25,000.
$25,000. Yeah.
$25,000.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jorge
Thank you,
Barrera,
guys.
a sponsor of the show, and they can check out the just a smidge below $7 million for Fort Myers Beach, baby. You're going to live on the beach and you're going to live in paradise for the rest of your life. Thank you to Jorge for being a sponsor of the show. ATM Mortgage wants to know if it's time for you to do a little home improvement around the house. They offer lines of credit and rehab loans for the simple or complex project. If you need a new roof, some of you unfortunately need a new roof. If you need to fix up your dock, unfortunately some of your docks are in the back bay. You want to call them. Call my friend Kim. 239-849-6999. 239-849-6999. Or go online to atmmortgage.net. atmmortgage.net. ATM Mortgage, another great sponsor of ours. We only tell you about the sponsors that we trust. And listen, I'm going to say this once. If you sponsor the show and somebody calls you and you leave a resident hanging and you don't follow through, we're never going to read an ad for you again. We're never going to recommend you to a client or a customer or a friend or a resident on the beach again. Don't screw over the people on Fort Myers Beach. If you want to be part of this little tribe here, if you want to be somebody that gets in with the people that watch the show or follow the show, you better be true to what you say. And so far, everybody's been A-okay. So just want to put that out there in case you were thinking that you could just jump on here and advertise. We want to make sure everybody trusts everybody. Dear, are we done? Are you coming back on or are you done? She's out there mingling. They're from Michigan. It's so nice to see all the yellow shirts out here. Want to make sure that we don't
3.
just sign off without you saying anything.
Yes, they were so excited. Ooh,
Really?
that's too loud. Yeah, they were so excited to see us. And I said, I tell people all the time, please, if you come down,
Yeah.
if you see us, please come up and say hello, that we love meeting people and their
Yeah.
enthusiasm. They have a place on the beach and so they're down here. I don't know for how long, but I'm sure Michigan is beautiful. I actually haven't ever been there, but I think it's probably chilly. So,
Well, we need to close the loop on
Okay.
one thing, the washing machine.
okay.
We have a washing machine. You have a little story to tell about the washing machine. So
From
I have a
Oh.
little story to tell quickly about the washing machine.
I don't think
I
anyone
work from
cares.
home of the job that I've given my notice to after 20 years. This week I gave notice about the job because, I want to focus on this. So anyway, you say the washing machine is coming between the hours of 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock on Tuesday or whatever it was. And so, usually I go to the gym at 1 o'clock. So that's a complete inconvenience to me. So I go to the gym at 11 o'clock or 10:30, and inconvenience my schedule so that I'm there when the washing machine guy shows up. Okay. So it's 11:45 and I'm in the car driving home from the gym to make sure I'm home, to make sure the washing machine guy has somebody there. So you call me at 11:50 and say, the washing machine guy is there and I'm not at home yet. So when you give a time frame from 12 o'clock, first of all, why does somebody need 4 hours to deliver something?
Because you are not the only person they're delivering
But-
to. I
but-
know it's shocking.
I know, but 4 hours. 4 hours. You need a 4-hour window. What about people that don't work from home? Like, how do you
Then
figure?
they drop the washer off out front.
No,
You either
it
make,
was an installation. It wasn't a drop the washer out on front. It was an installation.
yeah, I know, but if you
So
can't
somebody,
be there,
so you can't pinpoint. Now he gave us a 4-hour window, and he still was outside the window.
Wow. I mean,
How do you? What?
because I called in the morning and said that, my husband has to go to the gym and you're really inconveniencing him. So if you
Did you really say that?
Yeah. So if you could pin down
How rude.
the time. And he said no. And so I hung up. I was like, all right, whatever. And I think that they then decided to move your
So then you call me
favored
and
self
say,
right up
okay,
to the line.
washing machine guy is there. And I'm like, okay, I'm on my way home, but it's not 12 o'clock yet. I'll be there. I was there when I was there in time for him. And you know what?
I'm sorry that it was such an inconvenience for you, because it had, and I know it pales in comparison to the inconvenience to me that it took. I won't mention where I got the washer.
Lowe's.
An hour and a half to purchase this washer.
Go ahead, tell the story, please.
Because they had a discount if you signed up for their credit card. So I went through the whole
Big mistake
rigmarole.
right there,
Yep.
signing up for
I
a
went
credit
through
card.
the whole rigmarole, and then when I went to get it, they couldn't find my account. So I called 2 or 3 times. I got the lady from the credit card company on. I put her on speakerphone, and the person that's helping me at Lowe's is standing there, and she goes, "Ma'am, are you sure you're at an actual Lowe's with an actual salesperson?" And the guy is standing right there. So he picks up the phone and he's like, "Yeah, actually she is. And this is me." And da, 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 da. So after an hour and a half, there was a woman there, the manager, because I fell out. I started screaming for a manager. Well, screaming. I started yelling loudly for a manager. I was getting upset. She came over, she readjusted the price, and they got it figured out. And
What was the original price of the washer?
$617.
What did you get it for?
Well, I'm supposed to get it. I was
What'd you
supposed
get it
to get it for $389. However, I checked the credit card before I came down here, and it's more than that, but less than $617. So I will be
What was it
back at
for?
Lowe's and hammering that out.
This is a complete waste of time.
No,
Why do you do this?
Because I like
Why?
to advocate for what I get. Listen, if you're offering that
The
deal,
washer is in the house and it's
I
washing
know,
clothes.
but I also feel
It's
like
washing clothes.
there-
Just let it go.
no, I need that 20%, but I also
Why?
need to be
Why?
compensated.
We just sold 4 hoodies for $50. Why do you need to worry
At
about
the
the
end
washing
of the day,
machine?
the
Why?
problem was they spelled my name wrong, and that's
Oh, for
why they
crying out
can't
loud,
find
for
my
crying out
account.
loud. We-
So maybe if my name is not correctly on the bill, it doesn't exist. But anyways, Lowe's was very helpful in the end. They, so now our refrigerator's leaking, so you get to listen
Oh
to
wait,
that.
we're gonna
coming
get
up.
$1,000 refrigerator for
No,
$250.
we are not.
It's gonna make ice cubes that say Beach Talk Radio. You watch. That's how it's gonna be. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Thanks to Jim Atterholt. Thank you for buying us coffees. You can buy us coffee if you like the show. If you like Kim's stories or the newsletter at buykimandedcoffee.com. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Tomorrow we will have a video. She will on the beach. Say it all with me, everybody. Bye-bye.